Hi there. Happy Thanksgiving and welcome to the Plugged In Show. I hope that you are all eating turkey and listening to this show right now. Obviously, you are listening to the show because, here we are talking, and you would not get that reference if you didn't. But anyway, I am Paul Asay, and we've got quite a feast for you today. We're going to be talking about artificial intelligence. Not the bad AI is going to take over the world kind. Not that it'll make your life ever so much easier kind. We're talking about how your kids, particularly if they're creative kids, can use artificial intelligence to make music and write books and who knows, even make movies that we at Plugged In may be watching one day and critiquing on this very show. Who knows? But of course, AI comes with some issues too. Instead of a tool, it can be a crutch or a cheat. And that's not good at all. Brett Eckelberry and Emily Tsiao will unpack that and all with me today. And then Emily and I will talk about what some think might be the biggest movie of the year, Moana 2. Hey guys.
Hey.
Hey.
So today for our little traditional icebreaker, I've got a weird question for you. What is the worst thing you have ever made?
I don't know what you're talking about. Everything I've ever made has just, I have the Midas touch.
Of course, Emily.
Hair
of
flip.
course.
Yes, that's great.
No, I'm kidding. Actually, I do have one here. So when I was in 8th grade, so I think I was 13 at the time, I fancied myself a singer/songwriter. And I just got to say, I think I wrote like 3 or 4 songs that year. All horrible. But one in particular actually stirred up some bad feelings with my best friend because I wrote it when I was feeling sad after I got rejected by a boy.
Oh, of course.
And then I want to say it was probably like a month, but in middle school years, that's like a day, but it was probably like a month later she started dating that guy. So when she heard the lyrics, she thought I had written it about him. I had not. It was actually, by that point, I had moved on. So, I was a little boy crazy when I was in middle school. And I was like, okay, I like you. Now I like you. Now I like you. No, but it was just one of those things where it actually wasn't even about any specific boy. It was just me being an angsty teen. And well, she didn't interpret it that way, and it almost ruined our friendship.
Really?
But luckily, we had another mutual friend who intervened and acted as our mediator and fixed things because she got my side of the story, and then she was like, well, that's not what she thought, and she said this, and then I just went, and then I was able to go to the other friend and be like, I'm so sorry, that's not what this is.
Isn't that just like a middle school relationship?
Yes.
No, this is not what she meant. This is what
Yeah.
This is what I heard from this one person who said.
Yes.
This is what happens when you get your wires crossed.
Well, I'm glad you had a mediator in there. That's a good
I
friend.
know.
So.
I had some great friends. I actually weirdly had some really good friends in middle school, but yeah.
So what I'm hearing through this is Taylor Swift stole the idea of Bad Blood from you, Emily.
There we go. That's my story.
She got
and
that
I'm
from
sticking
you.
to it.
Get some royalties.
Oh man, if I could retire on that.
You really could.
I really could.
Not that you would want to, because you like your job so
sayonara
much.
Plugged in. No, I'm just kidding. I think I would just do it for free.
That's exactly right. You almost do that for free now. So.
Well, so it's funny because what Emily said at the beginning of her answer, I felt like I had the opposite problem. I was like, what isn't the worst thing I've created? Because I love to write, I love to draw. By its very nature, it's an iterative process, right? A little bit like maybe the AI we're going to be talking about a little bit later, but you get better at things, right? But when you go back and you look at what you've written before, or what you've drawn before you knew maybe a little more techniques, or you got a little more confident with the process, it can be a little cringy sometimes. And I remember distinctly having some things, I would just draw all the time in school growing up. If I had some free time, just grab a sheet of paper and draw something out. and just being very proud of some of the things that I drew. And then a year or two later, digging through my stacks and being like, oh, this wasn't as good as I had thought.
And parents are no help at all because they'll say, oh, this is great. Let's hang it up on the refrigerator.
Which, hey, nothing against that. That was encouraging. That definitely
it kept you at it.
It kept me at it, yes. But I had to do some self-reflection here. Yeah. There was some of my past work. So
it's kind of funny, Emily, that you mentioned songs, poetry. I think that middle school, high school songs, poetry, they should be their own category. I think I wrote a lot of really bad poetry at one point in time, and I wasn't even thinking about any of that stuff. I actually went back to when I was 9 years old. I was a little kid, just moved to Colorado Springs from my hometown in New Mexico. I was kind of missing my friends, so I decided to write a play featuring them and me as, of course, detectives. It was, I thought it was great. I thought it was going to be the next big Hollywood blockbuster. We all lived in a 6-story treehouse. I plotted out exactly what was in every,
wow.
It sounds like fun.
Well, it was fun to write it.
It's like Boxcar Children meets Magic Treehouse.
But when you're 9 years old and you have no idea about story structure, it feels a little bit bad. Even when I looked over it again when I was like 12, I said, oh, this is garbage. I read it over and I thought, what was I thinking? There was like an instance where there was this exciting fight with the main criminal we capture and then immediately we forget about him. All of a sudden it's all about fast food, where we're going to go eat. And I think the criminal just sort of scampered away. It was really terrible.
I will say there is some merit to this because if you haven't heard of something called Axe Cop, okay, this is a real thing that exists. It's an online web comic
Axe Cop.
that a guy
Does he wield a hatchet instead of
he is.
Yes,
baton?
and how it came about was a guy, I think in his 20s. He had, I think it was his nephew, and it was stories that his nephew would come up with, and then this older guy would literally draw out the adventure. So super, super cool, and very much in the vein of, oh man, they're fighting aliens, and then now they're gonna go get a burger or something like that. Like the really hard cut to a different part of the story.
So what you're saying is,
vibe.
I was just ahead of my time.
Yes. You just needed the right artistic partner in your venture, and you could have. You could have been the precursor to Axe Cop.
We could have partnered up with your terrible art and my terrible writing. It would have been a great partnership.
Smash
and I could have
it.
written the terrible score.
Smash it.
Yeah, although I'm much older than you, and you guys weren't even born when I was 9. So, but we'll move on. We'll move on. Speaking of terrible creations, let's talk about AI. Because I know...
What a segue.
What a segue. But really, when I think about AI, one of the first things that pops into my mind, artificial intelligence, the ways that we can use it to create, the immediate image that comes to mind is me looking over your shoulder, Emily, when you were working with a little bit of AI for our blog, and there was a picture of this woman throwing around like 23 kittens, and you never asked for kittens in your query.
There were no cats in the prompt. Yeah, so I want to clarify really quick. First of all, we do not use AI that often. We occasionally will use it to generate images for the blog. Mm-hmm. So if you actually go and read our blog, not all of them, but a couple of them have AI generated images. Yeah, so I just want to clarify that for our listeners. But yeah, no, the prompt for that, I think it was supposed to be like, I don't even remember what the prompt originally was, but it had nothing to do with cats. And yet it gave me 4 images with not just like 1 cat or 2 cats. No, like 23 cats per picture. And I was like, what did I put cat in the prompt? And I went back and I looked. I was like, no, there's no mention of kittens or cats or anything meow. But there they are. And like the women in these pictures were also just kind of looked deranged. They had like a couple really too many teeth, and their mouths were like really big, like, because they're like, they were supposed to be angry, I think, actually. I think maybe that had been my prompt, but they're like big, huge smiles, like just gleeful and gleefully laughing is what they looked like. And I was just like, okay, AI, we're not on the same page. We are not.
So,
this is not going to work.
I have to confess, and I could be totally misremembering this, but when we went through a process of these photos, right? You sort of showed me the process of what these photos looked like. And it really started off with, you were looking for an angry woman doing something. You had a smiling woman with a cat, and then more cats showed up and more cats showed up. It was just like this, all of a sudden, it was just this image filled with cats, even though you never asked for it.
I kept trying to adjust the prompt to make it more specific because they tell you that, the more specific you are, the more likely you are to get what you're looking for. So I kept trying to make it slightly more specific, just like a word here or a word there. And instead of it getting better, it just got progressively worse.
Right.
And I couldn't figure out where the glitch in the matrix was happening, but my mind was boggled.
It's interesting though, and I think that illustrates one of the pitfalls, I guess, of AI creation. Artificial intelligence is sort of learning its way, by its very nature, learning its way for what we want and what we need when we ask it for certain things. In fairness, I've seen some really nice images that AI has generated as well. And this can be a real tool when we use it correctly, right? Can you tell us a little bit, Brett, about what AI really can be used for in some of these creative spaces?
Sure. And let me just hit on something that kind of you were talking about there too, where without the human element, right, the quality control, so to speak, AI can really go off the rails, like we were just hearing about, right? In all sorts of ways, right? One of the big problems with AI right now or people are worried about is like misinformation, right? Where AI is pulling from a variety of sources,
including other AI sources.
Right. And those aren't always reliable.
So it becomes sort of like this echo chamber.
It can become an echo chamber of like misinformation, false ideas, all this stuff. So you have to be very careful when you're using it. That's why a human element is obviously still required in terms of iterating through and using the tool, leveraging it in the right way. So some of the ways that people have been using it through tools like ChatGPT, for example, that's a big one, right? That's probably what most people are familiar with. Talking about writing a variety of things, right? You could write essays or an email response, or you could even write entire books and stories. I've seen
using AI,
right? With just a prompt, right? I've seen AI write, ChatGPT specifically write haikus and poems. At times it doesn't do a bad job.
Right.
But at times it does better than I would have done.
Sure.
At 9 years old.
But no, I think that's a valid point, but that is not, in a way, that is a cheat, right? That's not helping you create. That's actually getting artificial intelligence to create for you.
Right. It's what I like to kind of refer to as like the AI easy button, right? That's like a bad way to take it.
Right.
It's like, oh, cool, I got a school assignment and I don't have to write this 10-page essay. AI is going to write this 10-page essay. And there's research out now.
I mean, not even just that. I mean, people will use it if you have a research paper, people will use it to do the research for them.
Right. And cite sources, which is very,
and that's just as bad because you didn't even read the material yourself or find it yourself. You just let the AI find everything for you.
And that's if it does find it for you, because I've seen instances where it will create a very convincing looking reference link that goes nowhere. So that's a problem too. But even beyond writing, you have AI tools that will generate images. DALL-E is a big one that's tied in with Microsoft and ChatGPT as well. Midjourney is another one. You can create some pretty incredible images. Now, again, it's really an iterative process you're working through. If you want to make something with AI, just like Emily's experience, you kind of have to finagle it, right? It's not just, hey, whatever is in your head, this perfect vision that's in your head is going to magically appear on the computer screen, right? There's still the input that's necessary to kind of whittling it down. But again, if things like this are stopping people from actually building the skills themselves, these creative skills, even songwriting, music, all sorts of things, I think that's when it becomes a big problem.
So how do you really help? Like, I'm gonna think about parents. I think about me, honestly. When my kids were growing up, my son loved music. He was really engaged in the idea of making music. I can imagine that some of these tools that are available could have really helped increase him as he sort of developed that craft, but it could have also be sort of a shortcut where he didn't have to do it at all.
Right.
So how, as a parent, can you help your kids use these tools potentially in a creative way without letting those tools take over?
Well, something that when you were mentioning, the uncle who was drawing stories that his nephew had come up with, I kind of think of it like that. If your child, maybe they don't necessarily have artistic abilities, but maybe they have writing abilities and, but they like, I wrote this play. I want to see it performed, but they can't, they don't have enough friends to, throw it together into a show or whatever. So that could be something where you as the parent could help them potentially make a like little movie or something out of what they already wrote.
Right.
And then, assuming that you don't have your own artistic abilities like that uncle did, and that could really inspire them to see their story like played out on a screen. Like that would be a huge way where you could like really inspire your child's writing talent through the use of AI, because you're not using the AI in the writing. You're using it to showcase what they wrote. You know what I mean? So like that, I think, would be an excellent use of AI.
Yeah, I really think it's kind of leaning into, so as parents, like what are the things that your kids are like interested in, the skills that you see in them, and then really encouraging them to build out those skills for themselves, especially when they're very young, pulling back on at least letting them use the AI tools to generate things, especially work that they'd be interested in if they like writing stories or drawing pictures. I see it as a good way to use it is, as Emily's talking about, kind of a more like supplementary tool, an inspiration for like, this is what could be done, right? It's bringing some things to life in a really cool way. If they wrote a story, you could have an image generator build out, like illustrate parts of their story in a certain style that they like, that I think could just really excite the kids. So
creative juices.
Yeah. So I think it's a balance between, you want to make sure their, what I'll call like creative endurance is not being like sapped by, I'll just, it's easier to just put it into this AI tool and it's better anyway, right?
Right.
But even then I would say that's a danger that could exist if you're watching kind of a master at their craft do the same thing. I'll never get there. Well, maybe some kids will think about that. Maybe some will be inspired to try to get to that level, right? So I think it really comes down to kind of knowing your kid and encouraging their strengths.
That's a really interesting point, what you said there, because when you create anything, it really is hard, especially at first. I mean, there's this joke that everybody wants to be a writer, but no one actually wants to write because it's hard when you get into it. And when you're talking about creating music or drawing or painting or any of these creative skills, there's a lot of skill involved. And I would imagine that there's an element within AI that allows them to be encouraged and maybe even to coach along the way. Would that be fair to say? Would there be tools that could be used to help coach kids as they're sort of learning the craft?
I think so. And I think that it could be used, again, if if your child's into like artwork or painting or doing something like that, if you know the kind of style that they're into or some of the things that they like, you can really maybe even kind of personalize a lot of their kind of creative journey if they want to say, I want to learn how to do that. Okay, well, we can use this tool to kind of guide you through the process, just as you would if you were looking at paintings or drawings of any artist as well. Okay, how do we break this down? How do I emulate this so I can also create
I mean, like there's some other ways you could use it. You could use an AI you could ask the AI, give me some writing prompts.
Yeah.
Give me some drawing prompts.
Right.
Give if you wanted to, like, if your child wanted to learn how to edit videos or something, you could have it pop out a bunch of videos and then challenge your child to edit that together into a story somehow. Even with you could be like, if your child is like, oh, I kind of want to draw this, but I don't really know what that would look like, you could use the AI to prompt it, but then, but then your child, instead of just taking that and, redrawing it, just kind of like put their own spin on it as they are creating their own art, because I mean, like, personally, my greatest challenge when I was, as an artist has always been like, I might think of something in my head, but I don't know how to translate what's in my head onto paper without seeing it at least once. Like, I need to see it somewhere other than my mind's eye. So it's like, whatever I put into the AI, it's never going to give me exactly what I want, but it might give me just enough where I'm like, okay, but I'm going to change everything about it. This just gives me, frame one to work from.
Frame one. I think that's a good way to put it. And, as we think about this conversation, I wonder, too, whether parents even know that a lot of this stuff is out there, and whether it's possible that their kids are using these tools without any guidance at all. How would you recommend that parents would step into that journey? How should they step alongside their kids if they're already using AI to create?
Yeah. In fact, some recent research came out that indicated that a lot of kids are using what's termed generative AI. That's what we're talking about specifically, AI that generates images, words, music, all that stuff. A lot of kids have access to these tools because they are very easily accessible now.
And most of them are free, right?
Most of them, you just need to put in your email, and that's pretty much all you need to get started creating whatever. And so a lot of kids are using this. Not a lot of parents necessarily know that their kids are using this. And I think that's partly because of the ease of access for these tools now, right? I really would say, I encourage parents in terms of kind of finding out that baseline, finding where your kids are at. Approach your kids, ask them about it, be open and curious. Like, if they say, yeah, I have been using AI, don't get too frightened or too scared, like, right away, or come down hard on them. I would try to insert yourself kind of into that experience. Oh, okay. Well, what are you using AI for?
Show me what you're creating.
Yeah, show me what you're creating. Maybe we can create something together. Show me how to use this, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
I think that's a great opportunity to come into the situation, come alongside your kid, and then if you start to see some issues with, maybe their creativity is being short-circuited,
right?
Or if there's some content concerns with the tools that they're using, things like that, you have kind of a front row seat to see that as an advocate for your kid, and then you can start to put some natural boundaries, I think, in place.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. I think that it is really important to come alongside, and I loved your advice about actually telling your kids, all right, show me how to use this tool, because number one, there's a pretty good chance that you might need to know how to use that tool. I mean, it could be a fun thing. It could be a family activity that you can do together. And we go time and time again at Plugged In, we talk about how sometimes these pieces of entertainment, these pieces of technology, they can be used to bring us together. And that's where their power and that's where their joy is when we are brought together by these things. And so stepping into that journey with your kids seems like a great opportunity.
So just one other suggestion that people can do for fun. I think that, and this comes into the stepping into that process thing, make a game out of it. There's a lot of different games where, like, you're given a prompt, and then, so each person has their set of cards, and they each pick one response to that prompt, and then the person who chose the prompt, they pick the best one. You could almost do that with AI. Like, totally. I'm thinking about the cat picture. It's like, okay, everybody go get an AI to generate this prompt, and you can tweak it and stuff, and then I'll pick the best one. It could become a really funny and fun game for your family to play. So
Yeah, I really love that. Just the fact how much fun we had looking at those cat pictures.
I think we need to do this on Plugged In. Look for that in a future episode.
That's great advice. Thank you guys so much for chiming in on this. This was a really interesting conversation.
Thank you.
The original Moana is the most streamed movie in Disney Plus history. Can
That's
you
impressive.
believe that? Crazy numbers on that. Now it has a sequel. Moana 2 is now in theaters, and it already looks like it's on its way to becoming a huge, huge hit. It may even take over Inside Out 2 as the biggest movie of the year.
We'll see.
We shall see. Yeah. So I will confess, as I start this conversation, I have seen Moana, the original Moana, once. And I remember next to nothing about it, other than it has some sort of shape-shifting Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and Moana is on a voyage, and that's about it. So let me ask you, because I'm sure that most of our listeners, viewers, are way more familiar with this than I am.
They are.
What is going on in Moana 2? Where does it pick up?
So it's picking up presumably a couple of years later because Moana now has a little sister. It's kind of unsure how many years later. She's a really little kid, but yeah, she could be anywhere between the ages of, I would say, like 2 to 5 probably. But regardless, it's been a few years. And where we left off in Moana was that she had returned the heart of Te Fiti and in thus doing,
Of course.
calmed the spirit of Te Kā because they are the same deity. And basically her people can now voyage on the seas. But Moana is still kind of the only wind finder, meaning she's the only one who can navigate the currents and the stars. Like, she's the only one who has the knowledge to do that still. So this movie picks up and she is searching all of the nearby islands for other people because
Other wind finders?
just other tribes,
people.
other people, because on their little island community of Montanui, they know that they have ancestors who are on other islands, but they don't know where because they stopped traveling on the sea because of the whole Te Kā Te Fiti thing. So now that they can travel again, they're like, okay, we want to go find the rest of our people. And it all culminates. She hasn't been able to find any yet. She's found evidence of other tribes, but she hasn't found them. And so basically what happens, though, is she is given a vision from her ancestors that tells her that if she doesn't find these other people soon, they're all going to wither away, including her own tribe. All of these tribes are just going to wither away into nothing. Like, they need these other tribes to make their people strong again.
Well, that's alarming.
It is alarming. And so come to find out, there's this other god called Nalo, and he is the reason they cannot find these other tribes because he sank the island of Motufetu. And Motufetu was this central island where all of the ocean's currents met there. So people from all of these different islands in Oceania could all get to Motufetu and meet there.
Gotcha. Sort of like a big family reunion type of thing.
Sort of. Yeah, that's a good way of describing it. So Nalo sank that and cursed the island, and basically, in order to break the curse, a human has to set foot on the island, has to touch the island. So
Even though it's underwater.
It is, yes, even though it's underwater. So Moana goes on this journey, and she obviously teams up with Maui. And so the idea is that Maui, the little demigod, he is going to, well, he's not little, but he is going to raise the island, and then Moana's going to touch it. And they're going to break the curse, and then they'll find all the people and save all the people. That is the idea, and that is what Moana 2 is all about. It's their new journey.
Wow. So just even from that quick recap, I gather that there's quite a bit of spirituality involved with this.
Yes. But nothing out of the realm of what we saw in the first Moana film.
So if you're used to, if the first Moana film was navigable, probably this one would be, at least from that perspective. Would that be fair to say?
Yes, I think that'd be very fair to say. Obviously, we have new gods and goddesses. We don't really hear so much about Te Fiti or Te Kā. Now we have these new ones, which is Nalo and another goddess whose name I can't remember, but she's a bat. She's like the goddess of the underworld type thing. But it's not really an underworld. I actually didn't realize that where she was at was the underworld until I was doing some research, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. So it wasn't like this super dark thing. It's more she's more mysterious than she is dark, and she actually kind of helps Moana on her journey even. So she's not even necessary. She's an antagonist, but she's not really a bad guy. Nalo is the main guy here who they are trying to defeat.
Gotcha. So when you're looking at this movie from sort of a parenting perspective, are there other problems that parents really should be aware of before taking their kids there?
Yeah, it might be a little scary in some parts.
It sounds like it could be.
Just because there are some really intense moments of peril. At least 2 people almost lose their lives. Actually, one character does lose. They do die, but then they are brought back to life as a new demigod. So we witness the creation of a demigod. I think that's really the only thing, is that it can get intense in some areas, and then there's that spirituality. There's also a big tie to Moana's ancestors. They can appear as spirits and talk to her and share visions of the past and the future with her. They had a hand in the creation of that new demigod, so they are powerful. They do have power in this mythology of Moana, and that's just something you got to navigate if you want to see it. But it's not outside the realm of what we saw in the first Moana film. It's not a big stretch from point A to point B. So it really just comes down to your own, like, whether or not you want to navigate that.
Yeah. When you were going into this movie, you were a little worried about there potentially being some LGBT issues.
I didn't see any.
We always sort of have to preface that, right? Because they can sort of sneak things in.
If it was in there, then it would have been a blink and miss it type
very
thing.
Subtle.
But I did not see it.
What about the messages that this movie has?
I think there's some good positive messages. I think that we learn, first of all, we just learn a lot about teamwork and even about being a good leader. Moana is not just Moana and Maui this time. Moana actually brings 3 of her people from her village to serve as her crew on their boat. She actually gets to step up as a leader, and she has to motivate them, encourage them, like rally them. And you see how she does that. But then, when things start getting, you see the doubts that she has as a leader. What if I lose myself? What if we don't make it back? What if I don't just fail my people, but what if I get these people currently here with me? What if I get them killed? She has all these doubts and stuff. But then that's where her and Maui's friendship is so crucial, because, in the first movie, he was so narcissistic and just self-serving. In this film, it almost looks like he's doing that again, but come to find out, he's just trying to protect Moana from Nalo, because Nalo hates human beings. And so he was trying to essentially raise this island on his own and figure it all out without putting Moana in danger. But of course, that didn't work. So when he sees that she is doubting herself, that she feels like she can't go on, he steps up and he's like, I'm going to do for you what you did for me. I'm going to, I was down in the dumps once, and now and you raised me up. Now I'm going to do the same for you. So it's a really lovely little friendship that they have.
That's very encouraging. That's really cool. So tell me just a little bit, is the movie any good?
Let me just say this. I'm a musical snob. So for me, the music wasn't as good as the music in the first movie. Which basically will play out one of 2 ways in terms of parents. Either your kids won't enjoy it, so they won't be playing it, until next July.
Yeah.
So that'll be a nice break for some parents. Or because it's Moana, your kids will listen to it anyways, and you just have to kind of suffer through that the music isn't quite as good as the last one was.
Oh, man.
Not that it was bad. It was very good music. It just wasn't. It wasn't written by the same people.
Didn't have that sparkle, that Lin-Manuel Miranda sparkle.
Exactly. Lin-Manuel did not have his hands on this one. So it has a different vibe. And again, not that it's bad. It's just very different.
But fun, funny, something that kids, if
I
it's
think that
navigable.
This is very much very navigable for most families. Like if you've navigated other movies dealing with magic or mythology, then you could probably navigate this one.
That's really good to know. Thank you so much, Em. All right, and now it is time for one of my very favorite games, even though I often lose it. Pop Culture Connection. Ashley is in the studio. Hey,
That's
Ashley.
right. Hey, Paul.
Oh, it's not quite the same, is it?
Oh,
But
it's
we
just
try.
as good.
We try.
Yes,
So-
we're elevating it
Exactly.
to a new level.
Take that, Adam. So, the rules of the
Wow.
game are pretty simple. You tell us what we should be giving some answers to.
Yes.
You have some prompts.
I do.
Like an AI program, you have some prompts.
Oh,
and
well,
we have to
yes.
give some answers as to
Yes.
why that thing is really cool. And we have 30 seconds to give as many answers as we possibly can.
That's right.
And even though my answers are always fantastic, if I don't get enough, I will still lose.
Well, we don't know about that
Okay.
yet.
All right.
All right, we're doing a this or that edition,
Okay.
Thanksgiving style.
Okay.
Thanksgiving
All right.
style. Does that mean
So-
we all have to grab like for the last roll?
Maybe.
Oh,
We'll see.
okay.
All right, Brett, you're up first.
Okay.
Side dishes: mashed potatoes or stuffing?
Stuffing, in particular to Thanksgiving. Stuffing is unique to the Thanksgiving holiday. Mashed potatoes are great, but you have them like any time of the year kind of a thing. So stuffing is the perfect complement to turkey, the aforementioned mashed potatoes, rolls, everything like that. How can I wax poetic about stuffing? It's bready. Bread is great.
Yes.
Carbs.
Yeah, carbs, fantastic. Yeah, stuffing.
Nice.
Good
That was
stuff.
the wrong answer. You don't help him.
So 4 points towards stuffing.
I think I'm in trouble.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right, Emily, we're going to the meats.
Oh, the meats.
Ham or turkey?
Turkey, because I'm allergic to ham. I like turkey because you can put it on the sandwiches the day after. Just add it with some butter on a roll, and it's delicious. Put it on a actual sandwich with some mayo, also delicious. You can make turkey tetrazzini after, which is, oh my goodness, unbelievable. You pair it with some cranberry sauce, or which, you can have the canned stuff or the fresh stuff. At your Thanksgiving dinner, and it's delicious. You put gravy all over it, and if you just want to eat it plain.
There you go.
I didn't even get into light and dark meats.
Right?
Yeah, nature.
That was very good.
Turkey.
It
Turkey is
was.
nature's nap time food, right? The tryptophan.
Yeah.
It just puts you right to
Wow.
I
sleep.
never sleep better than after I eat turkey. It's
Nice.
I
always
never
great.
sleep after eating turkey.
And what is this about tetrazzini?
I was going to say.
Turkey tetrazzini?
Sounds like a recipe needs to go up on the episode notes.
I'll give you guys my grandma's recipe. It's so good.
Please do.
awesome.
I will. I'll bring it to work.
All right. 7 points for Emily. Good job.
done.
Brett,
Good
you've
job.
already lost.
I know.
I'm sorry.
Ah,
I feel
well,
bad.
Now I just hope that I beat you, Paul.
There you go. Wow.
I don't
Happy
feel great
Thanksgiving, folks.
about it though.
Oh, wow. All right. So, Paul,
Yes.
you're up for dessert.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
All right.
I'm ready.
Bring it
Pumpkin
home.
pie or pecan pie?
Lemon meringue, surely.
Ooh.
But if I had to pick pumpkin or pecan, definitely pumpkin, because pumpkin, you actually make the stuff from your leftover Halloween, pumpkin that you do, your jack-o'-lantern. It's a little bit sweeter. I hate nuts. Typically, it's just sort of one of those things. If you throw it, like if you have a really, really violent Thanksgiving party and you throw the pies, it's much softer. Like it just splatters across your face like custard.
All of
Wow.
the answers I thought you could have given. Throwability. I
That's
never
so
would have
funny.
figured
No.
would fit into the equation.
And whipped cream is in there too, usually. So
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
the whipped cream. I don't
that's
like
so
whipped cream
funny.
though.
Wow.
Yeah,
Interesting.
I'm a sheltered child.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Goodness.
yeah. My parents never did the whipped cream thing when I was
Wow.
little. So, but yeah. There you go. Pumpkin
Well,
pie.
even including your lemon meringue answer, you got 6 points. So Emily is our winner
Man.
with the turkey tetrazzini.
Well,
I am unchallenged when it comes to Thanksgiving, let me just say.
man.
I know
tell
my
you what.
Thanksgiving dinner.
So my daughter, this is beside the point, but my daughter loves Thanksgiving, and she will literally cook like 20 side dishes because she loves Thanksgiving that much.
That's going to be me this year. I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to cook all of the sides because, although I still don't know what my...
So Emily,
My
what
plans
time
are-
is dinner?
What time is dinner? That depends on which family I'm with. If it's with my family, we usually don't have it. It's which family you're with, but also what you did earlier in the day. So, if you woke up and you had a proper breakfast and you had a proper lunch, then dinner's at 5. If you decided that it was going to be a lunch/dinner, then it cannot be later than 3 because people start getting hangry, And even if you do have it at 3, you still have to have the appetizers. You have to have, your Jell-O jigglers. You have to have your fruits and veggie platters. You got to have your chips and dip,
All right, so I'll see you around 3 is what I'm hearing.
We will all join Emily for Thanksgiving dinner. Thank you
I'm
guys
just not gonna tell you guys where it
much.
is, and then you can't.
I think that our listeners and our viewers can join in too. We'll just all go over to Emily's house for Thanksgiving. Thank you. If you decide not to come to Emily's, thank you for joining us here. This was a lot of fun. We had a great time just sort of talking a little bit about AI. We had a great time talking about Moana. The game was nice, even though I lost. Please join in with your own thoughts. Tell us about your favorite Thanksgiving food. Tell us about how you'd like to use AI in your own life, in your own creative pursuits. We'd love to hear about that. And are you planning on seeing Moana too? So you can let us know by writing us a letter at team@thepluggedinshow.com. That would actually be an email.
Yes.
You can chime in. You can chime in on Facebook and Instagram. You can leave us a voicemail on the Plugged In Show homepage. Or you can even leave us a message down in the comments section on our very own blog, such as the one that one of our listeners did. Boris Drew wrote, after we did our episode 259, where we talked about loot boxes and the power and peril of in-game sales, he said, the practice of loot boxes and gacha games lately in video games has been very interesting to observe. Western games are largely dropping the loot boxes that made Overwatch and Battlefront 2 notorious initially, but Eastern games are making billions currently through the gacha system, which is very similar. Unfortunately, those systems are addicting just like gambling, but they aren't regulated by the U.S. government. So over here, children can have full access to them. That is interesting. I occasionally make purchases in games myself, but nothing over $60 in most cases. It's just not wise as far as I see it. Thank you so much, Boris, and thank you guys for listening and watching. And be sure to settle in next week when we turn our attention to, yes, Christmas, and especially just who might be shaping you and your kids' Christmas wish lists. You won't want to miss that conversation on our next edition of The Plugged In Show.